Hello and a very warm welcome indeed to this special edition of Quadriga, coming to you from the heart of Berlin, where heads are still spinning after Sunday's election outcome. Angela Merkel secured a fourth term in office as Chancellor, but who will be joining her in government will only become clear in the days, or more likely the weeks, that lie ahead. The Chancellor's Social Democrat rival Martin Schulz failed to convince enough voters that he should get the job and says the SPD will now lead the opposition. But for many, the clear winners in this election are the third-placed Alternative for Germany, the far-right AfD, who have made it into the Bundestag for the very first time. So today on Quadriga, we're examining the election results here in Germany and their significance for Germany, Europe and the rest of the world. Election 2017, Germany has voted. And to discuss the latest developments, I'm joined here in the studio by three astute observers of German politics, beginning with Werner Sonne, who was for many years with Germany's ARD TV network and one of the best-known correspondents reporting on German politics.
Morning.
Morgen, Werner. Also with us is Alan Posener, a regular columnist for the Berlin-based newspaper Die Welt. Hello, Alan. And a warm welcome too to DW's political correspondent, Michaela Küfner. Michaela, I would like to begin with you. A bitter victory for Angela Merkel. She has secured what is an historic fourth term in office, but her Conservatives got the worst result since 1949. What do you say?
Yes, well, her party has won the elections, but this was by no stretch of the imagination a victory. She will go down in history as a chancellor who's managed to basically impose her own political brand on the CDU party. And it looks like her own party is now paying dearly at the polls here in Germany. And she herself finds herself in a position where she is weakened as somebody tasked with putting together a coalition. Now, looking on to Germany from the outside, and having the German Chancellor Angela Merkel remain a fixture here suggests that there will be continuity, that there will be stability, that you can still expect what's coming out of Germany in terms of policy. But this is a very different political ball game, both in the parliament now and also in terms of which options are on the table to form a government.
Werner Sonne, what do you say? How wounded is Angela Merkel?
Yes, she is very wounded. She is much weaker. And Germany will be less predictable in the future with this new coalition, which is the only real option, and that is the so-called Jamaica coalition. You will explain what that means. I'm
we will
sure.
have to.
It will be the coalition of the Greens and the Liberals and the CDU. And this will be a coalition that will be very hard to form, and it will take a lot of time, and very open how this will play out.
Alan Posener, what do you say? The outcome of this election is being described as a reality check for Germany, especially in light of the AfD moving into the Bundestag.
No, I don't think it's a reality check at all. 13% of people who voted for the AfD voted for a total unrealistic form of politics. We'll discuss that later. So it's not a reality check. What I think is a very good thing is that the so-called grand coalition between Merkel and the SPD, which harmed her and harmed the SPD, has been broken. The SPD is going into opposition. Good thing. Secondly, we're going to have a coalition of the centre-right, including the Greens. Good thing. Whether Merkel is weakened or not, she has a mandate. The moment she's formed a government, she is the head of government. And, you know, polls go up and down. The point is, she will still be the woman you have to reckon with during the next 4 years in Europe and the world, and Germany, of course. So, I don't know. It's neither reality check, nor can one say Merkel is weakened, because there's no one else in her party who's going to challenge her.
But when you look at people commenting on the AfD's pending entry into the German parliament, they talk, people talk about them marching into parliament. The Financial Times talked about a Molotov cocktail being lobbed into the heart of German democracy. Is that sensationalism?
Well, to use the term Molotov cocktail, which, I mean, it was, the name Molotov reminds one who invented it, seems a bit strange in the context of a sort of right-wing extremist party, which they are. Look, the polls were predicting something like this for weeks. And people in Britain, I've been talking to all sorts of people, giving interviews for the past 2 weeks to BBC and co, and they never wanted to hear about the AfD. Suddenly they wake up. So if it's a reality check, it's a reality check for the international press. We in Germany, we knew what was going to happen. We've had the AfD gain 24% in regional elections in East Germany, and they've got similar numbers now. So, come on. This is the new reality in the Bundestag, but that doesn't mean, you know, that it's going to change the way.
Well, we've got a clip now. Let me bring this clip in of Alexander Gauland, one of the AfD's co-leaders. Let's listen to what he had to say. This is. Frauke Petry, a very familiar... this is what happened this morning in German politics, a new development. Frauke Petry, one of the co-chairs of the AfD, upping and awaying from a press conference that they were giving here in Berlin. She's one of the most familiar faces internationally from the party, and I think this is maybe an indication of potential further divisions within the party. Maybe the party might even explode, Alan.
What Frauke Petry said that she wanted her party to be a conservative opposition and ready for government in 2021 after the next election. And with this action, she's shown that she doesn't believe the party leadership, Gauland and co, are going to do that. What they're going to do is fundamental opposition. And and she's right. This is what's going to happen. This party is going to be more and more radical, and that is why they're not actually going to upset German politics, because they're not going to be ready for government. The way the Linkspartei, the left party, hasn't been ready for government for the past 20 years. So that leaves the others to sort out the real things of politics.
Well, of course, the question is obvious. The question is, do we see the beginning of a split within the AfD? We have seen it before. The founding fathers of the AfD have left the party a long time ago, like Olaf Henkel, Bernd Lucke. They all left. They really wanted a conservative party, and now they are faced with a party that has, of course, a lot of conservative elements, but a party that also has a lot of radicals, neo-Nazis, racist inside of this party. I'm not saying they are the majority, but they are certainly an important element within the AfD. And Frauke Petry wants a different AfD, and therefore the question is, do we see this morning the beginning of a split within this party?
Mm-hmm. And I dare say the AfD has already upset German politics. They left their mark not just on this election campaign. We see all parties concerning themselves on how they can keep the AfD at bay ahead of this election, this historic result for them of this very young party, that clearly is not afraid of using very right-wing terminology and has declared that they will hunt the government, that they will basically what they're saying is they want to heckle the parliament, that they want to hold them to account. And the big question is, will they remain hecklers in German democracy, or will they become part of what they look down on as the establishment right now, and actually want to develop more policies than being against the migration policy, against the euro?
When you talk about them hunting down their opponents, let's go to that clip that I just wanted to see earlier of Alexander Gauland. Let's see what he has to say about precisely that.
The German government, whichever way it is formed, shall dress warmly. We will hunt them. We will hunt Mrs. Merkel or whoever, and we will take our country and our people back again.
It is incredibly vitriolic, the language. Michaela, why are they so toxic in their view of Angela Merkel?
Well, they basically have declared, in a way, they've fed off her political brand as well. Being anti-Merkel, also looking at polling, there actually is a significant proportion of German voters who felt that 12 years is enough for Merkel anyway. So they tap into this right-wing rhetoric. They We heard Alexander Gauland just in the middle of this campaign saying it's time for Germany to draw a line, to be proud of the military achievements of German soldiers in World War II. And then basically saying, well, I don't really see what the problem is. That's what François Mitterrand said. I'm just quoting him. And it's this kind of new mechanism that is breaking a consensus here in Germany amongst not just the large parties, but also those parties already in opposition, that is not something you toy with in German politics.
What strikes me most when I hear this soundbite, this is 100% Donald Trump. Absolutely the same. And I think a lot of what we see here, you see in the United States. And so you can argue that Germany is, with the AfD, becoming a normal country. A lot of people will be shell-shocked when they hear this, but when you look around and all over the globe, especially in Europe, France, the Netherlands, Poland, Hungary, the United States, you have movements like this. And in that sense, Germany becomes a normal country, whether we like that or not. I don't, to make that very clear, but it's pretty obvious. This is what is happening right now.
Alan, you're shaking your head.
Well, I'm shaking my head for several reasons. Firstly, Donald Trump is in the tradition of American populism, which is quite different from German right-wing movements of the past and present. You can't compare them. What Gauland was saying then, I know him very well, this was actually not pure Donald Trump. It's pure so-called conservative revolution of the 1920s, which led directly to fascism.
What is he saying? We take back the country, we give it back to the people. This is 100% Donald Trump.
Yes, but it means something different in the German context. Because who are the people he and his party say have hijacked Germany? It's the Western elites. It is the United States of America. It's the so-called East Coast capitalists, which is code word for the Jews. It is, as Alice Weidel, his co-chief of the AfD said, the victors of World War II are creating a civil war in Germany in order to exploit us. This is fascist ideology, which has nothing to do with Trumpian populism. And I really want to draw the line here. And the point is that they're doing this. They want a fundamental opposition. They don't want to be in government. They want to be a fundamental... That's why Petri left the party. That's quite different from the way Trump hijacked the Republican Party in the USA. And with all due respect to the Poles and the Hungarians and so on, it's different if that happens in an 80 million country like Germany or in a smallish country like Poland or Hungary. So really, this is not just sort of Germany becoming normal. This is Germany reverting to form, yes, but not a good form.
No, I fully agree. It's not a good form. It's not that I support this idea.
I know.
I'm just pointing out that this is what is happening, and we see it everywhere in all major countries, and now you see it in Germany too. And that is what this is what I'm calling. We are becoming, whether we like it or not, a more normal country where you have a radical left in Germany and where you also have a radical right. And this is what is happening.
But even following that logic, and we're still looking for what actually could be a normal country, because there is no normal country.
True. Yes.
But Germany, because of its history, is the one country that could and should know better.
Yes,
and that's
we fully agree.
No, and I'm totally with you.
I have to make this point loud and clear. We are in full agreement. This is a bad thing that is happening, but it is happening anyway. And I stick to my description. Germany is becoming a more and more normal country, and this is part of it, whether we like it or not.
I go along with that, but at the same time, the new normal that we're seeing in the United States is a very different new normal that we could see being established over the coming 4 years here in Germany because of where Germany comes from and because of still some people being alive who remember what it felt like, what those beginnings are. So that is coming from a different direction. That's why so many alarm bells are ringing. At the same time, this is a test for democracy. And this is also an opportunity to bring radical views into a democratic process, let them be tested by German democracy and see whether they stand that test of time.
I fully agree there too.
It's terrible.
Let's listen to what, on that question, how to combat the AfD, let's listen to what the Social Democrat candidate, Martin Schulz, had to say just after the results came through. Now I've got the right camera. There you go.
We will continue our struggle for democracy and tolerance and respect from this day forward with all our strength, with vehemence and passion. And given the results of the far right, not just with vehemence and passion, with all of our might, we are the bulwark of democracy in this country.
Michaela, Martin Schulz and the Social Democrats as the bulwark in defending democracy.
Well, this is an opportunity for the Social Democrats to use their very own history as Germany's largest party, who stood up to right-wing extremism once before in German history, unsuccessfully, to basically rediscover their own profile, because they really badly need to do that, because they have been governed into the ground in a grand coalition with the Chancellor Angela Merkel. At the same time, you know, it's not anybody's role to hunt the AfD, who have declared that they're going to hunt the government. The big question is, will they stick to the rules everybody has to play with? And if they don't, will there be enough resilience to go after that here in Germany?
Well, but the main question this morning is not what role will the AfD play in German politics. The big question this morning is, what will the future coalition bring to the table in Germany and also in the world?
OK, then I'm going to ask you, Werner, to explain the Jamaica coalition for our viewers.
It has to do with the Jamaican flag.
If we're going to talk about Jamaica, we need to define Jamaica,
the Jamaican flag, which has the colours black, green and yellow. And that is why we journalists, we media people, call it the Jamaican coalition, and this will stick. So please do get used.
It's a need to know about German politics for the next 4 years.
Please do get used to this. But anyway, this is the central question this morning. What does this new coalition mean for Germany and for the rest of the world? And it's interesting to see that a lot of things that the world is interested in, and rightly so. What will the biggest country in the European Union do in the future? What can they do? And I'm a little bit surprised that a lot of questions have not been asked and have not been mentioned last night, and that is foreign policy. What will happen to Russia, to our relationship with the US, with NATO, security problems, and of course Europe. And I think
that's a big agenda.
Yeah, it's a big agenda, and the only thing that is more or less safe to say is that these three parties will support the European idea. Maybe a little bit more critical, but this is the huge thing that they are facing together. And then, as I said, we have to address all these questions. What will happen to Russia with our relationship, with our very strained relationship with Russia, for example, and of course with the United States? What will this coalition do?
Well, OK, let's give Alan a chance to come in. Tell us about relations between a future Jamaica coalition in Germany and transatlantic relations with Washington. What should we expect there?
Well, I think, actually, they could be better than they are now, because Merkel is obviously an Atlanticist, always has been. The Free Democrats wobble a bit in the direction of neutrality, always have, by the way, the old politics of Mr. Genscher. But in the end, they plump for free markets and democracy. And the Greens, strange to say, who used to be so critical and are now, I would say, the main pillars in that coalition, supporting sort of, if you will, an active, proactive Western policy against Russian aggression all over the world and all over the continent. So look to see, I would say, don't worry about the transatlantic relation. I think that's going to be fine, in spite of Mr. Lindner.
OK. Werner has indicated that we do need to worry about what you call the strained relationship with Russia. Michaela is nodding too. Werner.
Yeah, of course. So far, we do see an extremely strained relationship when we have reacted. The Germans have reacted within NATO. We have sent thousands of troops eastward. They're now based at the Russian border in the Baltic states. And
they're actually based on our border because Russia has been aggressive against the Baltic states. You need to formulate. They're in the Baltic states at the request of the Baltic states because Russia is undermining the sovereignty of the Baltic states, interfering.
No doubt about it. I'm just describing the facts, which is my job as a journalist, by the way. So this is what we did in reaction to the violation of the international order by Russia.
Okay.
And therefore, it will be very interesting how this new coalition will go about it. Will we see the SPD moving traditionally towards Russia more, like they did in the past 4 years? What will the liberals do in this respect? Will the AfD get even more support from Russia, like they did in the past, over the past months?
That's a very interesting question indeed.
A lot of very interesting questions. We don't have the answers yet. What will we do in our relationship with NATO? Will this new coalition support the 2% goal? Probably not. Like they did, like Merkel indicated she might do. Vaguely is the word I was looking for. Thank you. So, yeah, a lot of interesting questions, but not too many answers so far.
Michaela.
Yes, and this is an illustration why I like to describe the potential of a Jamaica coalition, that it definitely is a lot less fun than it sounds. Because you can imagine that the German Chancellor, who has been basically organising those sanctions against Russia in the past. She was the main person here in Europe doing that. And across the table, you will have Christian Lindner from the Free Democrats, who basically already declared Crimea a dead loss. That's what he basically did. We have to get used to it.
Let the Russians have it. That was the message.
We don't have enough time to try and find some middle ground between that. That's just for starters.
Lindner isn't going to be foreign minister. He's already said that, thank God. He can be Minister of Finances, for instance, and it wouldn't be bad to have a Liberal in charge of that office. And if, for instance, the Greens, if Cem Özdemir of the Greens, who, by the way, is very friendly with Lindner, they call each other by the name they're buddies. Yeah. But if he is foreign minister, and I'm sure he's not going to go along with giving Russia the Crimea, he will support the sanctions against Russia and so on. So I'm quite sanguine about this. There's going to be a lot of sound and fury, but it's not going to signify anything.
Are you just as sanguine on behalf of Emmanuel Macron, the French president? How will he be waking up to this potential Jamaica coalition this morning? Because the Free Democrats don't quite go along with his plans for reigniting the European project.
Yeah, he said if there was going to be just a coalition between Merkel and the Free Democrats, he'd be dead politically. Well, he's got the Greens in the coalition, so he's half dead, right? Yes, it's going to be difficult, but on the other hand, one thing, the main opposition party, which, thank goodness, is the SPD and not the AfD, is going to be more pro-Macron than the government even is, more pro-European than the government even is. So there's possibilities within the Bundestag which you know, we'll have to see what happens. I don't think Macron's lost his game yet.
Werner, Macron?
Well, that's an open question, but I think all these parties will agree that the German-French connection will be the driving engine in Europe in the future. That will continue. And I'm not really worried about Europe. I think these three parties are basically pro-European. And therefore, the leadership of Angela Merkel in this respect will continue. So we can tell the world this morning, which of course took it for granted that Angela Merkel would be the new and old chancellor in Germany. Yes, she will be, and she will be supported by this new coalition when it comes to Europe. All other questions, and probably also when it comes to the United States, where we see deep divisions. I mean, climate change is only one element, but the Greens this morning keep stressing, yes, we need to continue with climate change, with the Paris Accord and everything. So there are deep divisions with the United States. And we'll have to see how that will play out. But when it comes to Europe, we can tell the world this morning, relax, this new coalition will still support the European idea.
OK, I've got to come in there. Michaela, we began first question with you, last question with you about Chancellor Merkel. People had hoped, some people had hoped, that they see her as a potential leader of the free world. They had hoped she would come emboldened out of this election. She hasn't, has she? She's wounded.
No, she hasn't. And her standing outside of Germany, once again, is greater than it is in Germany right now. She has definitely hit the low of her chancelling and her leadership of the CDU party.
It's going to be interesting to see whether she survives all of the 4 years. Interesting times lie ahead for Germany. Thank you very, very much indeed for joining us on this special edition of Quadriga after the German elections 2017. Come back next week. Bye-bye. Cheers.